Stefan Rollnick, him, is Strategic Insights Lead for the Welsh Government, a contract position that he has held since January 2024, after leaving Lynn Global. Prior to joining Lynn Global, Rollnick was Digital Analyst for the First Minister's Office, providing support and training to communication teams in the Welsh Government and Welsh local authorities on handling mis- and disinformation. In the time when he was not working for the Welsh Government, Rollnick posted, "Drag Queen Story Hour. I just walked past a group of protesting activists giving out leaflets from a bigoted organisation called Public Child Protection, PCP Wales. PCP Wales is trying to stop the teaching of relationship sex education on the disingenuous claim that it sexualises children. The protest is a copycat of protests erupting in the United States, with the far right attempting to stoke anti-LGBTQ+ hatred by protesting Drag Queen Story Hour events over concerns about paedophilia and child safety. Solidarity with the LGBTQ+ folk on my timeline. Your safety is all our safety, and it's on everyone to speak up against this divisive and dangerous politics." The post received likes from the great and the good, including Baroness Wilcox of Newport, a Labour member of the House of Lords; Sian Pope, her, Head of Communications for Housing and Local Government and Social Justice within the Welsh Government; Robin Hughes, him, one-time head of Welsh Translation at Cardiff University, now Development and Quality Leader for the Welsh Government; Sara Peacock, her, Head of the Strategic Team at S4C; Luke Young, former Head of Communications at Welsh Labour and National Campaign Director for Jeremy Miles's bid to become First Minister; Leo Holmes, him, Head of Policy and Advocacy at Early Years Wales and former Engagement and Communications Officer for Dawn Bowden; Jeremy Evas, Head of Project 2050 at the Welsh Government; Gemma Traherne, her, Senior Communications, Engagement and PR with Media Cymru, based at the Spark Building at Cardiff University; Anna James, her, Head of Corporate Communications at Dyfed-Powys Police; Alison Tobin, former Research Communications Manager at Cardiff University; and Simon Lovell-Jones, former Schools Outreach Officer at Cardiff Metropolitan University and Student Recruitment and Widening Participation Officer. PCP Wales, as Rollnick is no doubt aware, were protesting about changes to the relationships and sexuality education that, as it turns out, have an ideological basis in queer theory. The architect of the Welsh Government Relationships and Sexuality Education Code and Guidance, Emma Renold, writes in her book, Girls, Boys and Junior Sexualities, Exploring Children's Gender and Sexual Relations in the Primary School, queer theory is linked to forms of politics which deliberately seek to break down the fixed boundaries between the hetero, homo, gender and other binaries to multiply sexual categories and ultimately dissolve them. And queering childhood involves not just the queering of sex and gender and sexual binary oppositions such as male and female and heterosexual, homosexual, but also the generational binaries, adult and child. Queer theory is part of wokeism, an ideological movement based on the writings of postmodern philosophers Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault and Judith Butler, whose followers believe you can change society for the better by changing language, and that there is no such thing as truth. In a podcast, Elly, former Chief Executive Officer of Educate and Celebrate, explains what this means.
Oh, fantastic. I think, you've made an interesting point there about language and people being a bit wary of language. So if we're looking at defining sort of key terms here, and people who listen to this pod are all over the world, we talk about LGBT+. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I use LGBT+. It's quite interesting because I wanted to use the word queer on my book, but the publisher was like, we're not ready for that. But actually, what we're talking about when we say LGBT plus, which I feel is an inclusive term because the plus includes everyone, is we are talking about all gender identities and all sexual orientations together. And that's why I really like using those two terms to cover exactly what we're using. And that is in the Equality Act too. So we have sexual orientation, but gender is under gender reassignment, which, as you speak to any trans person or anyone around gender identity, it's not about reassignment. That is one part of some people that may have some reassignment which suggests surgery. That does not cover everyone. So I would love to change that on the Equality Act. So it's gender identity. So it includes everybody outside of the binary, so outside of male and female.
The Welsh Government RSE guidance instructs teachers to tell children that gender is not a synonym for sex, but relates to how someone feels inside. A change to the definition of the word gender has been put out for consultation. The new definition is proposed to be, for the purposes of this guidance, gender is a term used to refer to whether someone's internal sense of themselves is female, male or non-binary. A person's gender does not always align with the sex they were registered at birth. The Welsh Government appointed Alessandro Ceccarelli to head the LGBTQ+ policy for the Welsh Government, leading on the development and implementation of the LGBTQ+ action plan for Wales. Ceccarelli is interested in queering archaeology and history. The new definition of the word gender, which is not a synonym for sex, is also included in the action plan. In February 2020, Ceccarelli was a speaker at National Student Pride 2020, a talk hosted by Elly. That same year, Ceccarelli was responsible for implementing a gender-neutral language policy at Cambridge University. Before joining the Welsh Government, Rollnick was campaign manager for the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, a lobby group initially established under the name Brixton Endeavours, whose director was Keir Starmer's current Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. In 2024, it was reported that the Centre for Countering Digital Hate were attempting to kill Musk's Twitter. Elon Musk bought Twitter in 2022. Prior to the acquisition, Twitter moderators would suspend the accounts of anyone found guilty of misgendering. Included in the ban was Canadian feminist writer Megan Murphy, who was banned for tweeting, "Yeah, it's him," about trans-identified male and activist Jessica Yaniv, also known as Jessica Simpson, who sued numerous beauty salons in British Columbia on the basis of discrimination over their refusal to wax his testicles. For Rollnick, Barnes and Ceccarelli, Yaniv and people like him are victims. For others, Yaniv is a predator. As trans-identified male, Blaire White explains.
Now, Jessica Yaniv is currently under fire for a lot of things, and I'm going to list them here. Going into women's public restrooms presenting entirely as male, photographing underage girls, sending predatory, disgusting, entirely inappropriate messages to tweens and teenagers. And I'm going to get to those messages, and just wait. And this is what most people are talking about with this person. Also getting a women's spa completely shut down after causing such a stink over a female waxer not wanting to wax their male privates. And apparently this person has filed over a dozen complaints to different spas. Yaniv is also apparently trying to host topless swimming parties with kids.
The Centre for Countering Digital Hate warned of the dangers of X under Elon Musk's leadership. Elon Musk has a trans-identified son. In an interview with Jordan Peterson, he explains how this experience has given him a determination to kill the woke mind virus. Elly explains how teachers should not encourage parental involvement.
So we've had to have parent consultations, and the only advice I can give you around that is don't send a letter home to say you're about to embark on this work. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't hold a parents' meeting. You don't want 30 parents shouting at you. Who wants that in your life? That's an awful thing to do.
The patrons of Educate and Celebrate included Peter Tatchell, infamous for his apology for paedophilia. In a letter to The Guardian in 1997, Tatchell wrote, "Several of my friends, gay and straight, male and female, had sex with adults from the ages of 9 to 14. None feel they were abused." The patrons also included Jordan Gray, who became notorious after exposing himself live on Channel 4 television. In April 2024, Gray posted, "This week there's been a lot of hot air rising from the far right, otherwise known as the Cass Report." The patrons also included Stephen Ireland, founder of Pride Surrey, who in March 2025 was found guilty of multiple sexual offences against children, including the rape of a child under 12. Elly Barnes' company Educate and Celebrate folded in 2023. Now, as well as being a chief propagandist for the Welsh Government, Rollnick is also a Rising Leader Fellow of the Aspen Institute. On their website, the Aspen Institute states its aims. Aspen UK is committed to bridging the UK's political, social and cultural divides. We help leaders from all facets of society become more aware of their own values, more tolerant of a diversity of perspectives, and more inspired to create positive change. We believe respectful dialogue is a tool that can catalyse societal progress and help create stronger leaders. Our non-partisan environment helps thought leaders discuss the critical issues we face today and create meaningful solutions for the future. From all available evidence, it seems that Stefan Rollnick and the Welsh Government are far, far happier shutting down any dialogue than they are in engaging in it.